one of the primary problems is that the individuals in the marriage are not happy with their own selves. Okay. And that's why usually when couples come into therapy, I recommend that they get individual therapy first
Yes.
and come back, or I'll work with them, one at a time, and then we'll have a few sessions apart and then a few sessions together, whatever. And then of course it depends also on the financial situation. But in short, spiritual therapy, if you have a connection with a higher power, because when you get to the point of apathy, you need a source higher than you, bigger than you, to go in and do the healing and the repairing of your heart, make your heart turn it from stone back to flesh.
Flash.
Okay. And then you also need the help of a professional to kind of guide you through that process, help you say the uncomfortable words and uncomfortable things and admit things that you need to admit so you can deal with it. I let my clients say whatever. I hate this person. I can't stand it. I want this person to die. Just drop dead. Yeah, yeah, you do. Why
Mm,
wouldn't you? You affirm them,
mm,
Now, why do you feel that way?
mm.
And what do you really want? What do you really need? What space is that coming from? What place of pain or rejection is that coming from? And a lot of my clients need to engage in trauma therapy. Actually, the majority of most people have trauma, just period.
Yeah.
If you live in this world, if
It's a,
you're a person of color,
Mm,
if you're not rich, if you experience life at all, you have experienced trauma. Now, just because you experience trauma doesn't mean that you have post-traumatic stress disorder. But odds are, I would say probably the majority of people could benefit from some type of trauma therapy, which also complicates, having trauma also complicates resolving conflict, because people with trauma, they're not just dealing with, this problem. They're dealing with a trigger from 10 years back that they're bringing into this problem. And then the wife is like, why are you bringing a 12 to a 4? You know what I'm saying? Level 12
yeah.
yeah.
attitude to a level 4 conflict. And the person they don't know why. A lot of people are triggered and they don't even know. I don't know why I'm this upset about this, you
Mm,
know. So it's kind of it's a doable, but it's complicated.
yeah.
You know what I'm
I would
saying?
agree.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, I would agree. And to your point, what I also recognize, even in just the beginning, I'm divorced in this season of life. Um, but even dating, believe it or not, there are a lot of people that I feel come, I'm like literally people say sometimes like, well, what are you looking for? Believe it or not, on my list is a person
Mhm.
who cares.
mm,
For the very reason of what you just said, I was like, because it would suck to be in relationship with someone that there is a problem or an offense somehow, and you
Mhm.
bring it to them and they're already starting at a deficit because they don't even care. Like,
Right.
you don't hold the value that's needed to bring the conviction to say, "Ooh, let me fix this. Let me
Right.
work on this with you."
Right.
And some people are starting out with that because
Mhm.
of their own experiences, and
Right.
that could go on for days if we wanted to talk about it. But I think to your point, which I'm really grateful to hear you say that, like that's literally my genuine answers. Like I'm like, y'all, what's on the list is a
Mhm.
person caring.
Mhm.
Because, I've actually experienced people not caring the version of care that I know should happen when you care about somebody.
Right.
It ain't
Right.
about manipulating and having to cry and shed. If you gotta shed tears
Mhm.
for you to matter, you can't say, "Hey, this hurt my feelings," and we can deal. But I gotta show you the depth of the pain. Like we gotta get to the point where I'm like broken for me
Mhm.
to talk to you about an offense. Like
mm.
that's a lot.
Right.
It
So
is.
I think that's so good to just hear in general when people are considering just relationship too in general, like, not saying to just break up with everybody or not, or to disconnect, but something to consider. Like she said, that's dangerous.
Very,
Mhm.
very. And
Dangerous.
Hey Nikki girl, I didn't get to read her comment. She said on Instagram Live, she said, I got divorced last year after 18 years of marriage. I burned my glove. So that's it.
Mm, that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
She said
Uh,
she burned her glove.
yeah, she said she burned her glove after 18 years. I guess she said, I'm tired of all that fighting or whatever it was.
Hmm.
But thanks for responding. April, what strategies do you recommend for couples who feel like they keep arguing about the same issues,
Mm,
don't know how to reconnect?
You know, it's so funny. Sometimes couples are arguing about an issue that they actually agree with.
mm,
Yeah, it's really odd and awkward. You know, because I'm on the outside looking in. I'm thinking, so both of y'all are saying the same thing, but you're saying it
agree.
angrily and you're saying it oppositionally, you know. So then it's not the problem. It's not the issue. They have an issue with each other.
Mm,
Okay. Um, but a lot of times, a lot of couples, because they are afraid of how the other person will respond, they will choose an issue and they'll make that safe issue the issue, as opposed to saying,
that's
you
good.
know, you on your phone too much. You don't help me with the kids.
You telling the truth?
I need you to clean up a little more. I don't like the way your mama talked to me and you let her do it,
Mm.
or you've been unemployed way too long. You know what I'm saying? We got a car, you can Uber, you can Lyft, you can do something,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, So these are conversations where they're uncomfortable actually addressing the issue head on. And situations like that, I encourage couples to provide environment where their partner is safe. Okay, have that conversation. I I want us to be able to talk about this and actually resolve it. Okay. And I'm afraid to bring it up because when I bring it up, this triggers you. And then we just then you don't talk to me for a week. And then we still have an unresolved problem. Okay. So that's one. Admit that there's a problem that is uncomfortable and plan it. You need to actually schedule your disagreements.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't do it as soon as the person gets home or when the person lays down or when the person turns on the game or, you know,
Mhm.
inconvenient or right as a person are leaving for work. You get what I'm saying? You plan it. Can we talk tomorrow after we put the kids to bed from 7 to 7:30? Okay, can we just talk about the problem? Stay on it. Okay, no hidden below the belt. We're not gonna pull, yes, something that's not we're not gonna pull a random problem into this one. This is not the space to deal with that 20-year-old problem. We're gonna solve this one. So it's important that you schedule it. Okay, you stay focused, you honor the problem, you honor the time. If it's 7:25, you pause and say, okay, we haven't resolved this yet. Do you agree to extend it an extra 5 minutes? And if that person says, no, I'm drained, okay, respect that. Okay, that's
Absolutely.
fine. Well, let's table it and let's plan another day to do it. Okay. Other ways to resolve the problem is take breathers. Take breathers. Always speak respectfully.
Mhm.
Okay. Offer equal time. Okay. You don't get to talk for 10 minutes. And then as soon as I respond, 1 minute into my response, you all over me. You know what I'm saying? Or
Mhm.
you finishing my sentence. How you know what I was for real about to say?
Mhm.
Okay. So I think just having those ground rules. There's an article I love called 25 Ways to Fight Fair for Your Marriage. You can find it online.
Mhm.
Excellent, excellent resource. And
Mhm.
just learn that. And I'll have like stop signs, and I have a stop sign, a yield sign, and I'll have them have a discussion. I hold up the stop sign when they break one of those rules. I hold up the yield sign, please clarify, use I statements.
Mhm.
Okay. Don't read minds because believe it or not, you for real don't know what that man is thinking. You don't. And sometimes when you ask that man, what is he thinking? He say nothing. It's true. Men literally have a way to completely rid their minds of thought. Women, we can't do that. We
And we don't
can't.
understand that sometimes.
But when he says nothing is on my mind, it's probably actually true. Okay. I also respect tears. So if your spouse cries, don't call him no punk and all kind of wimping, you know. All right. And don't call your wife a manipulator if she, cries. Just respect it, However, the tears should not derail the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? They should be respected, acknowledged. Should we take a little break? And then come back to it. Because some women and men will use tears to
You heard me.
pull rank.
Did you
Kind
hear
of
me?
throw the
You
yellow
heard, that's
You
why I
flag.
know,
said what I
kind
said.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of derail
Yeah.
the conversation, especially if it's coming to something where they're going to have to own up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think the other thing is just being humble, just respect that that other person has a valid point of view. Okay. And I think a lot of times, I think sometimes arrogance kind of gets in the way,
Yeah.
and we stop seeing that other person as having valuable input, at least from that person's perspective. What
Absolutely.
they say is probably valid.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing, don't jump all over little, like you said, you always, I don't always, just the other day I didn't. Okay. Clearly, they didn't mean you always. You
Yeah.
know, don't be like just jumping on everything. Let the person get their point out. Okay. It also helps if you're spiritually oriented to pray. Pray before you have that. Another way is hold each other. It's very hard to argue and hold each other at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Hold each other close, talk in a low voice. It's hard to talk just like when you send a text message or email, you just cussing, just you doing everything but cussing on the keys. When you have that distance, you can text whatever you want, right? But when you're actually physically close to somebody, embracing somebody, it's harder to be disrespectful unless you're that
That,
you have that personality disorder, that N word,
you
the
know,
other N word, not the M, not that
not
word, the
that,
other
and
N word.
but probably both, right? You probably
Probably
both.
both.
It probably could be both.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so April, let me ask you this real quick. So, are you saying if you are emotionally dysregulated, you're saying just take a break? Okay.
Take a break
Okay.
and then resume. Okay. And you don't get to resume like forever. I mean, you don't get to put it off forever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
once again, time limited because I don't care if you tell me you love me after 30 minutes, I'm sick of hearing it, especially an argument,
Yeah.
a disagreement is uncomfortable. So I can hang in here with you for 15, 20, 30 minutes. After that, I need a break, you know. So, but let's say things get a little heated. You table it and you schedule the next one. Some people will purposely start an argument to put it off forever. And it's 2 years later and we still ain't talking about it. That's
Mhm.
unacceptable.
Mhm.
That's unacceptable. I think within 24 to 48 hours, we need to come back and resume talking about that.
And then invite a professional if it has to go beyond that.
Absolutely.
Invite a
Absolutely.
professional. Because the reality is, I think too, and I would love to know your thoughts. I think that sometimes, I'm gonna be honest, I've told people, y'all freestyling ain't working. Like you trying to freestyle resolutions that you see
Mm-hmm.
ain't working for you. If
Mm-hmm.
freestyling is not working, get you some professional. See, there's only so much medical freestyling I can do at the house. It ain't but so much Tylenol you could buy, so much ibuprofen you can consume. It's only
Mm-hmm.
but so much of that before you're going to go have to get an expert advice for somebody to assess and triage this situation so that they can
Exactly.
actually do proper, you see what I'm saying,
Exactly.
treatment. So
Exactly.
I've told the couples like that I've spoken to, like, listen, Linda, it ain't but so much of this freestyling y'all could do, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
there's this idea that because we're grown and we're tall,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever, we pay our own bills or whatever, that we have all the answers. The reality is not all of us are well versed in relationship. Not all of us are well versed in our partners of understanding our partner or their feelings or how to acknowledge that. Many times people have never seen this as an example. Many times people don't even practice. You know what I'm saying? This merger don't just happen. You don't just wake
Right.
up, like you said, because I say I do and we're merging. There is a
Mm-hmm.
process, you know.
Oh yeah.
I love that word of merger, but I would tell people oneness takes time. You don't become one, you know, and just because you've been with somebody for 3 years. Oh, now we're
Right. Right.
so there may be some information that you are lacking
Right.
where you're not able to do it in the 24/48. You know what I'm saying? And it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean people are in trouble because you calling on April. You know, that
Right.
nobody's in trouble. It's the relationship that needs to be, you know, patched because
Right.
because we're a team, we want to keep on in this ship, we want to keep on making sure that we
Mm-hmm.
can stay on the water and float together. So let's call in the person who's going to help us keep this ship steady.
Right. And acceptance is a big thing.
Mm,
Okay.
it is.
Because when we get married, sometimes we just think that that person is going to morph into someone who they never were. They were never that, and they grown. You know what I'm saying? They're who they are, and they're probably who they're going to be for the most part. Okay. So if your person who you were dating, if they were cheating all the way up to I do, you married a cheater. You know, a marriage ceremony does not transform that person into someone else. If that person didn't cook or didn't clean or whoever that person was who you married, that's who they are. Okay, now if they're a teenager in their early 20s, you could look for some further development and growth and maturity. But if you get married in your 30s and 40s, who you marry is who you marry. And I know a lot of times we play roles and we do what we need to do to be liked. So a lot of healthy marriages, the majority of healthy marriages start before I do.
Mm.
Okay, so if there's anyone single listening, I encourage you all to go to, or single again. Okay, the relationship attachment model. You know about that, Sean.
For sure.
Okay,
For sure.
and the relationship attachment model has 5 stages, and it's basically 5 stages of attachment. Okay, and people who date with a purpose, it would behoove them to look that up. It's called RAM, Relationship Attachment Model, and it's basically 5 phases: knowing, trusting, relying, commitment, and then physical touch. Physical touch, sex is last. Okay. When you hop over the phases and just land on physical touch, all of that foundational work that needed to happen before you got to the point where you're having sex and being intimate, those foundations aren't built, or at minimum, they're built, but they're unsteady. They're unsteady. They're unstable. They're not solid. You didn't give them
Yep.
time to sit and gel and harden, right? So when you actually get into the marriage, that's when you actually start getting to know each other. So when you come to therapy, you're having to do the relationship attachment model again. You have to get to know the person. Who is this person now? Because clearly you're not the same person you were 10 years ago when you got married. Hopefully you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully you have a positive character, but hopefully you've grown. So you have to get to know them again. You have to start trusting them again. You have to start relying again, and then you have to recommit. And then a lot of times, by the time people get into marriage therapy, they're either not having sex, or it's very seldom, or it's not quality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, regardless, you have to go through the relationship attachment model in order, eventually, in order to have a healthy marriage.
Yeah. And does that shift depending on say like maybe a loss, somebody maybe, maybe mama died, or maybe, you lost a child or something like that, then does that start all over again? Because is this another person now because of life circumstances?
Sometimes I hear what you're saying, Sean. Sometimes you can have life experiences that will literally change you.
Hmm.
It'll change your whole outlook on life,
Hmm.
or who you are, or where you want to go, where you want to be. If you're a career woman and and that's all what's important to you, losing a child could really change things. You might go from one being a career woman to one to be home with your kids,
Hmm.
because you now know life is not promised.
Yep.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or you can just
Yep.
there are all kinds of experiences that you will have in life, because life just keeps happening,
Yep.
where you have to get reacquainted with who you are and who your spouse is in that moment, in that season, and accept that person for who they are and adapt your expectations accordingly. You
Hmm.
have to adapt and adjust your expectations. Okay, just like when a woman has a baby. Some women, we all hate them. They just zoop right back, no stretch marks, nothing. Okay, and things are tighter than before. Okay, for those 3% of women, I'm happy for you. For the other 97% of women, our husbands have to readjust to the new flexible skin, right? Right. The road maps, right? The stretchables, it's a new body. It's
Yeah.
a new body. So
Yeah.
you have to fall in love again with your wife's new body. You have to fall in love and accept and embrace that your wife is not just yours anymore. Those breasts are no longer just yours. You got to share those breasts with the baby. When she goes to work, right? She's
Hmm.
not 100% yours. She can't work and keep the house clean and take care of the kids and do everything when she was a stay-at-home wife. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's constantly growing, adapting, adjusting, growing, adapting, adjusting, acceptance. It's
Absolutely.
dynamic. It's a full-time job.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job.
For
And for
sure.
people who don't recognize that, who think it's a fairy tale and we're just going to be making love and just having sex every day and just going out to dinner and cooking, that's not life.
Yeah.
Okay. There are moments in between very hard work.
Agreed. Agreed.
I think that's so good that so in my own like sitting with myself, so I wanted to say something to one thing you said was when you talked about having a higher power.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I know is beautiful about that for me, because like you were talking about being able to humble, having the higher power or yielding to there being someone's ways above your own puts you in a position where you have a reference point that
Mm-hmm.
convicts you to say my way is not always right and perfect. There's another way that and in that for me and in agreement with you is God and Jesus is there is a way because the Bible gives us this constant reminder to not invalidate the neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
right? In any form, the neighbor matters. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That neighbor matters.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes because we don't all have the same viewpoint about this love thing, we go to the higher power that begins to align us with a
Mm-hmm.
consideration that goes beyond our experiences. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sit with, some of my own stuff, to
Mm-hmm.
your own very point of, recognizing that as I remember one season of life where I was being negligent, if you will, but it was my own personal choice. And I made a decision. I dated somebody and we got to the sex part faster than I preferred. I began to understand why that didn't work for me because I was like, now my expectations is that the connection, the communication, all the other foundational pieces that you just talked about, I'm
Mm-hmm.
shaky.
Right.
I'm insecure over here. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find this it's like I'm trying to find a way to stabilize this thing when we've really moved into a part that by the time I would have gotten there, those other attributes would have been built, would have been at least, has some steps involved in building them to
Mm-hmm.
where I can trust that we are building something. And some people don't realize, like, that's why you start to be like, man, I shared myself
Right.
and I'm questioning if we have a future. You're like, well, how do you do that? Well, because some of the other things that really bring a solidarity in yourself, you ain't got that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so
Right.
sometimes we do have to sit with ourselves and say, how did I contribute to some of the insecurity that I'm experiencing, you know what I'm saying, in this
Right.
relationship or in the development of this relationship? Because now I'm heavy on the guy to start
Right.
bringing up these, you know what I mean, to start producing certain behaviors and attributes that
Mm-hmm.
really should have happened in the
Or
progression of the relationship. And here's the deal. Y'all grown. Y'all get to do whatever work for y'all. I'm telling y'all what I recognize don't work for Aquila. Amen. Because
it
that didn't
doesn't
work
work
for
for
me.
most
And
people.
I needed, I'm serious.
Mhm.
I needed because now, like I said, we're working overtime in these other areas, and I want to
That's
see it
right.
expedited because
Mm-hmm.
we've already gotten to, you know what I'm saying, the part
Mm-hmm.
that usually comes as a result of,
Right.
you built
Right.
the connection, the communication, and all these things. I don't remember all of
Mm-hmm.
but the trust and all of that has happened. Now I know you rely. So this is where, side note. So this is where y'all, when I've heard all these conversations about, well, how y'all sleep with a man and y'all don't want to ask him for nothing because you slept with him before you felt like you could rely on him. And I've been
Exactly.
there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So then they like, well, Aquila, that's why you weren't able to develop the reliance on that person, and you've
Right.
already gotten to this place. I'm every bit of
Exactly.
43, y'all, so we ain't got time to be lying to ourselves.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's how I'm telling you, I got to sit with, why am I in a position where I'm not comfortable? So then let's go back to some of the discomfort of what you said. I'm not safe having this conversation with you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've created safety in sleeping with you. I've created safety in having fun with you. I've created safety. I've built all these safety nets in doing all the fun things and doing all the things that are enjoy. But I've not built safety in having uncomfortable conversations, telling you my
Exactly.
offenses and stuff like that. I don't want to tell you my offenses because I don't want to push you away. And the reason I can do the sex is because I feel like that brings us close. So I'm trying to do all the things that's bringing us close, and I'm trying to stray a little bit away from the things that I feel are creating a wedge, where if we build those things in a progression, we should know and trust that me telling you that you hurt my feelings is not going to make you go away.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
I was just telling on myself real quick, April. I do
Girl, you telling on me too. You telling on me too. I had to learn these things the hard way.
Yeah,
I had to learn, biblical principles have purpose.
honey. I keep telling
It's
people I don't know what y'all know,
yeah,
but I feel like I learned that God know what he's talking about.
yeah, yeah. It's basic instructions before leaving Earth.
Yes.
Because when you introduce sex too early, you lose your objectivity, you lose your security, and you lose basically your safety, right? And not just that, you become you make yourself common,
Mm.
okay? Everybody has genitals, okay? All right, but not everybody has your personality, your sense of humor, your character, okay, your way of dealing with things, your history, your heart, your artistic, strengths, right? Your writing capacities, your work ethic. But everybody has genitals, okay? And a lot of people, they just want some available genitals. You know what I'm saying? And some women and men feel like, well, can't nobody do it like me. Everything gets old and regular. Everything gets old. There are people in mansions, beautiful mansions, and they're trying to find another beautiful mansion because that one over there is new.
You better come on.
Okay.
Or not new, inexperienced. I've just never
Right.
tried it. That's
Right.
all. The house
Right.
ain't brand new. It did not
Right.
just, they didn't
It
just
ain't
lay a
even better than
foundation
mine. It ain't even better than my house,
in my,
right?
it's just it, I just ain't never been inside that one.
And
Period.
that one. Yeah.
Take all the words I said, y'all. I just ain't never been inside that
Inside that
one.
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
So, and
it's
then
just inexperience.
the other thing is that while you're going through the process, you teach, because people say if you want to develop a habit, it takes 21 days.
Yep.
While you're going through the process, you're actually teaching that person and helping that person develop a habit of treating you well. Okay. They're getting to know you and they're hanging on because they eventually want to get to level 5. They want to touch you. They want to have sex with you. So you're keeping them motivated. But once they've crossed the finish line and got the prize, then you're going to say, okay, now run the race. No, I'm tired. I got,
I'm tired. I'm rolling over.
No,
I'm
no,
yeah,
no, no. Run. I'm
yeah,
walking this one out.
right. I'm going to sit this one out. I might run a different race. I ain't going to run this same race.
I'm gonna walk. How
I
about
might,
that?
yeah, I might run it with somebody else. I don't,
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So that's why I say the building blocks to marriage actually start before marriage. But if you skip them, like most of us do, because we human, they have to start after marriage. Okay. But there's hope because God loves marriage. He supports them. And
Amen.
if you have two people who are humble enough to admit, I am contributing something to this. Okay. Even if men love to say she bipolar. Okay. So you know, who ain't bipolar? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. She yours. Okay, she yours.
She my
Okay.
bipolar baby.
So since she my bipolar baby, what we gonna do? What can we do to make this work? Okay. And you just have to work with that. You have to, the reference I use, whether you're gonna be a hostel, a hotel, an
Oh,
apartment, a
so
house rent to own, or a mortgage. You got to treat that woman, you got to treat that man like a mortgage.
Mhm.
Okay. And mortgage, what's the root word of mortgage, Sean?
uh, more.
Mortal.
Oh,
Okay.
mortal. Yeah, mortal.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mortgages were intended to you pay on it until you die. Okay, you
Mm.
invest in it.
Mortal.
Okay, people treat a house they own different than a hostel. A hostel, you invite people in, ain't nobody committed to nobody, right? A hotel, it's at least maybe two people, y'all in there for a minute, but you're leaving.
A little bit more isolated,
Right, a
secluded,
little more, right?
a little more privacy,
Apartment, you good for now, but I'm
time frame, short
eventually
time frame.
settle down. And then, you had to rent the own house. I'm gonna keep it up a little bit, but I might not buy it. But when you get a mortgage,
We
you're
in
gonna
there.
make sure you're gonna get insured, you're gonna invest in it, you're gonna paint it, you're gonna upgrade it because you're paying for it. And you're expecting to pay for it for probably at least 20 or 30 years, right? Usually 30.
Yep.
Yep.
Usually mortgages are 30 years.
Yeah.
And by the time you're 30, you too old to go nowhere anyway. So I'm saying 30 years out, what I'm saying? Who got strength to restart? I mean, you can,
Yeah.
but you invest as if you're gonna be there forever.
Yes.
And I think when you grasp till death do us part, then you commit to making your life with this person as good as it can be.
Love it. Love it. It's so good.
Yeah, that's good.
Ah, what role does past trauma or childhood experiences play in how we argue with our spouse?
Well, so again, when